Hey, what's up guys? Today I'll be discussing the often underrated team comp of Quickbloom teams. Quickbloom, from its name, comes from the combination of quicken reactions, so for this video I'll be talking about Aggravate, and the coinciding reaction of Hyperbloom. Aggravate reactions are done by applying Electro to a quicken aura, so as long as this aura is afflicted on the enemy, they will retain the Aggravate effect. This will increase the damage of electro attacks based on the reacting characters, EM and crit. So to prolong this effect, you would continuously want to apply Dendro and Electro. However, what if you wanted to gain the bonus effects of Hyperbloom as well? Now we know that a reverse bloom reaction, wherein you apply Dendro then Hydro, eats up less Dendro aura. Thus we see that there's still Dendro aura left for your Electro to react upon so that you can cause Aggravate. Now we can also be able to create a seed along with this at the same time. If you use a character like Xingqiu or Yilan to apply Hydro to create seeds, you run into the struggle of maintaining the quicken aura on the enemy. So as you can see in this clip, I am running Yilan, and she is applying too much Hydro element on the enemy, thus eating up all my Dendro aura. At this point, it would be better off for me to just run a full-on Hyperbloom team instead. However, if you try the same reaction with a slow applier of Hydro, characters like Barbara, Kokomi, or even Nilo if you wanted, with Nahida's off-field triggering, you are able to maintain the Dendro being applied to the enemy while also being able to generate seeds at the same time. With mostly Keqing as the trigger, you can now have both Aggravate and Hyperbloom hitting the enemy at the same time. These seeds do a significant amount of damage, roughly around 16 to 19k per procs depending on your build, with enemies being able to get hit with up to 2 Hyperbloom seeds every 0.5 seconds. The damage is actually not insignificant. Now there are some downsides to running this team over just a simple Aggravate team with Kazuha or Sucrose, most especially with the grouping and damage buff that they provide. For my testings, in most scenarios, the Hyperbloom seeds more than make up for the damage loss that may happen with them off the team. The grouping, however, is a bigger issue and can be a problem in scenarios with enemies that are further spread apart. The benefits to running a Hydro character, however, is that 1, you have a powerful healing option that helps you in survivability against dangerous chambers. When you run into the most optimal Aggravate team, you really don't have a good healer. Maybe having Prototype Amber on your Nahida will help, but for most people it's not enough. 2 is that it is a pain to properly swirl Electro and Aggravate teams with Nahida, because she often ends up eating your Electro aura after applying Dendro again with her skill. Thus you end up swirling nothing. For team building, the most important character would probably be Nahida due to her ability to apply a ton of Dendro to maintain the Dendro aura on the enemy. Her burst also provides a ton of EM which helps Aggravate and Hyperbloom. As for Keqing, she can be replaced by Sino, which can work, but Keqing's easier to play and fits into the rotations a lot better. The Hydro character can be either Barbara or Kokomi. Both have their own pros and cons, which I will get into in a bit. For the team's builds, you can follow the general template for Aggravate teams. 4-piece Thundering Fury is generally the best for your Electro carries. Make sure to level up your Electro characters to level 90, as transformative reactions scale heavily with character levels. Also make sure that there is a character in the team, specifically Nahida, that is equipped with the 4-piece Deepwood Memory set for the Dendro Res Shred. And so for Kokomi, you can run 4-piece Tenacity or Instructors, while for Barbara, you're only really limited to the Instructor set or any other healing artifact. For weapons, most of my showcases are using the Jade Cutter, but having an EM weapon like the Tokubo Shigure is actually pretty good as well. If you have none of them, then I recommend you use the Iron Sting or the Black Sword, which are also really great options. For Official, her best in slot will be the Stringless, and for Nahida, you can just run whatever weapon you currently use on her, so for me, I'm using the Whitsun. Finally, for Kokomi and Barbara, I highly recommend the Thrilling Tales, but for Kokomi, if you're having a hard time keeping Hydro uptime, she can run the Sacrificial Fragments in order for you to have an easier time maintaining her Hydro application. As your rotations may vary depending on which character you choose, I will detail each rotation so you can play each Hyperquick team more efficiently. The pros of Barbara, which actually is my preferred option, is that she is completely FTP friendly. Her Hydro application with her ring follows you around, and its duration perfectly fits the Hyperquick and rotation that I came up with. Her skill duration is about 15 to 20 seconds, and her CD, which also includes C2, will result in roughly 5 seconds of downtime. This downtime is not much of an issue because you can spend the rest of its time to recast Nahida's Burst or Official skill. The TTODS buff CD will also finish by this time, and thus you can immediately regain the buff on Keqing right after you switch onto her again. Also do note that she has her A1 passive, which reduces the stamina consumption that the active character takes, which is especially helpful for Keqing because she does a lot of charge attacks during this rotation. Unfortunately, she can't abuse the Tenacity of the Millilith set attack percent buff, but she can run the 4-piece Instructor set for a 120 EM buff. Do note that since Instructors is a 4-star artifact set, you might not have enough healing for some of your characters, but for most people I'm pretty sure it's enough. So now I'll be discussing Barbara team rotations. First, you start with Nahida's E, then Q. Then you switch to Official to cast Oz, either with your skill or with your burst. Next, you go to Barbara and cast your E in order to apply Hydro around you. Next, you switch to Keqing, first to catch TDODS, then you spam your E, then Q, then E again. Next, you can just continue to spam charge attacks until your Oz disappears. Once your Oz disappears, you go to Official and you cast your E or Q again to recast your Oz. Next, you can just maintain either on Keqing or Nahida, depending on the scenario, until your Barbara's E disappears. Once Barbara's E disappears, you just repeat the cycle again, starting off with Nahida's E then Q, and going back to Official. Remember that it's best to save Nahida's Q after your Barbara's E runs out, in order to make use of Barbara's E's downtime. So next, I'll talk about Kokomi. So the pros with Kokomi is that she has a wider AoE range, which can be useful when you're against many enemies. She is capable of full 100% Hydro uptime, which with proper rotations you can keep up. Or you can run Sacrifice in order to have an easier time maintaining Hydro application uptime. She also has a very powerful healing and can run Tenacity of the Millilith for additional attack percent buff. Her downside, however, is that her Hydro application is stationary, meaning that it can't follow you around when enemies are very far apart. Likewise, her rotations are very tight, and as such, if you make a mistake, her Hydro application shoots straight down and her DPS loss definitely increases. For Kokomi teams, her rotations are a bit more complicated. So first you start with Nahida's E, then Q, then you switch to Official to cast Oz, then you go to Kokomi and cast your E, then you switch to Keqing, then you cast your E, then Q, then E again, and then you spam charge attacks for a total of around 9 seconds, until you switch back to Kokomi, then you burst, in order to keep up her jellyfish. Repeat this step again, and don't charge attack anymore with Keqing after the second rotation, because it will remove her Hydro uptime. The timings might be difficult, so it's important to make sure that your rotations are as tight as possible. Do note, this is for 100% Hydro uptime. Depending on the scenario, you might not even need to swap back to Kokomi too early for the second rotation.
ちゃうと断罪の名にミュージック瞬く間に逃がさない。これこそが知恵の伝道、夜の権限、自衛のごとく。我が剣よ影に従え。覚えたわよ。私のお家にいらし姿を見せよ。みんなを守るからね。準備できたか。行け健康よ、世の乱れを切り尽くせ。瞬く間にはっディアはっ黙っはっそりゃよ行けふわっほっこれこそが知恵の伝道、
お嬢様の王様。
行け我が剣よ影に従え。はっじはっはっはっ行けふわっ全部丸見えだ。
開演したばかりだよ。
私のお家にいらっしゃい。影のカラスが自衛のごとく逃がさない。行けそりゃ行こうよ。瞬く間にはっよっ健康よ、世の乱れを切り尽くせ。行けふわっ
So yeah, that's it for this video. I hope I was able to give a comprehensive rundown on the Hyperquick teams and how they work in terms of rotations and other stuff, and as well as the reasons why you might want to run this team over the standard Aggravate teams. Also, this is my first time ever using my mic, so I hope I didn't sound too terrible. See you guys.